folks, this is all the fruit, and today I want to bother you again with a very complex Solanum nigrum complex of species and forms. Well, why do I even bother with this Solanum nigrum complex? Well, first, because for me as a botanist, those species are quite interesting. Second, because they all have edible fruit. And third, because, well, the different species of the Solanum nigrum complex taste quite differently. So when I was cutting the herbs and weeds and brambles on this cliff here, which in part is a former landfill and in part a very scenic and interesting cliff, I saw amongst thousands and thousands of Solanum nigrum plants I cut here a couple plants with pale fruit. So I left a little patch of about 5 or 6 Solanum plants. I did not cut those. I cut, well, on this piece alone I cut hundreds of plants. And then I checked those. First I thought, oh, that's some Solanum villosum. Solanum villosum, an urban species in this area, has started to spread into cliffs and forests during the last 2 years, which were very hot, and Solanum villosum needs a lot more heat than the average Solanum nigrum. But no, this was no Solanum villosum. Well, I want to recapitulate the Solanum nigrum complex for you very quickly. Well, basically in most of Germany, botanists don't bother so much with the Solanum nigrum complex. They get Solanum nigrum subspecies nigrum. In warmer areas, they get the hairy Solanum schultesi, but in our area, we have Solanum villosum, Solanum alatum, probably even some other forms similar to Solanum villosum and alatum. We have Solanum sarahoides, Solanum nitidibaccatum. They are all of this Solanum nigrum complex. All herbs looking like this. Well, with fruit looking more or less like this. Different colors, some black, some pale green, some bright red or yellow. It's quite hard to identify them, but I think after working for 20 years with the Solanum nigrum complex, at least I can identify the species in Germany. In other countries, sometimes I'm at a loss. And once you think you have mastered the Solanum nigrum complex, you look a little bit closer into the species Solanum nigrum, and there the problems are even bigger. I made a video about this roadside in the Mannheim harbor where there were at least 5 or 6 very, very different types of plants, which are all classified as Solanum nigrum. Most books and websites, they say, yeah, very variable species, and the only accepted varieties are Solanum nigrum subspecies nigrum, the more or less naked variety with only single hairs, like this. And then there is the Solanum schultesi, which is about as hairy as the yellow Solanum villosum. Most websites and books also mention that the fruit can be not just black, but also palish grayish and also greenish yellowish. So those greenish yellowish fruit, they are mentioned in pretty much every better book or website which goes a little bit into depth, and even in a lot which don't bother too much but just talk about it very casually. It's mentioned that the fruit are sometimes greenish yellowish, but without giving any specific name for this variety. So I guess that those plants are just plants which have lost the blackish purplish pigment of those fruit. Here we see Solanum nigrum. The fruit in this plant are nice and purple, and in this are quite, well, pale yellowish. Well, let's see if it really is Solanum nigrum. Well, this one, I'm quite sure it is Solanum nigrum. Look at the calyx. Like medium-sized calyces. The shape of the single sepals looks like this. The length and the distance, remember them, this is all typical for Solanum nigrum. Now let's look at those. Well, in the ripe fruit, the calyx has already kind of shriveled up, but if we stay at the same stem, here it is, and gets to the more green fruit, you can see the calyx looks exactly the same as with those blackish fruit on the neighboring plants. Let's put them next to each other. Well, okay, wait, let's take a couple on my hand. So look at the fruit, look at the calyx, at the sepals. They are an important means of identification. And they look pretty similar in the purplish ones. And to the left, a less ripe fruit of the greenish yellowish variety. When you look at the hairiness of the stem, you can see that both have very few hairs. Also, they have ridges on the stem. Also, this is a very important identification. If you look at the lower part, you'll see a couple little bumps on the stems too. Not as pronounced as in Solanum alatum, but they are visible. And here we have them too, on the black fruited one. So it seems those plants are very similar to each other. The only difference seems to be the color of the fruit. And since nobody really bothered to name this variety, I'm pretty sure that this is just a plant which lost the ability to produce the black pigment. And there were 3 or 4 of those plants here, but I cut the other ones. I just left one together with a couple black ones. Now let's see if the colorless fruit tastes different from the colored fruit. Well, genetically we figured out there must be really close, the same species, just probably one single mutation apart. However, there is such a thing with fruit colors. Some of the different colored fruit of the same species taste pretty much different. Everyone who has drunk red wine and white wine can tell you that, yeah, red grapes and white grapes produce quite differently tasting wines. So let's try them. First, let's try the unripe yellow fruit. Those are the fruit of the greenish yellowish fruited plant. They are not completely ripe. They are still very green, but I think they are already edible. Yep. Already nice and tasty. With the rest of the disgusting taste of unripe Solanum nigrum fruit, but basically already nice and edible. Now the fully ripe, pale yellow fruit. Even nicer. Okay, I lost the black fruit, but here we have a couple more plants. This is now the variety with the black pigment. Yeah. Pretty much the same taste. I can taste no difference. Yeah. So the taste is also a confirmation. So we saw this pale yellow, pale green fruited variety has the same little ridges and bumps on the stem. The same, well, almost complete lack of hairiness on the stem. There are a couple short hairs, but the stem is not really villose, not really woolly. The calyx is the same. Also, when you look at the leaves, basically after I ate most of the yellow fruit, it's hard to say which plant is the yellow fruited and which is the black fruited one. And also the taste is quite similar. So final verdict, yeah, I guess this yellowish fruited Solanum nigrum. It's just a mutation where the plant lost the ability to produce the black pigment. Otherwise, the plant seemed to be pretty much the same variety or genotype as all the other hundreds of plants on this slope. Okay, folks, I have to continue with my farm work now. Stay tuned for a lot more fruit videos from the beautiful cliffs of Germany, which somebody has used as a landfill decades ago. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.